The snow had been falling since morning, transforming the estate into something from a postcard. Through the tall windows of my in-laws' mansion, I watched fat flakes drift past the Christmas lights strung along the eaves, each one catching the glow before vanishing into darkness. Inside, the house blazed with warmth and color. Garlands wound up the grand staircase, a 12-foot tree dominated the foyer, and the scent of pine and cinnamon filled every room. I stood in the kitchen doorway, holding a glass of wine I hadn't touched, watching my husband Mark navigate the crowded living room. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd grown up in this world, shaking hands and laughing at jokes I couldn't hear over the din. 37 years old and still every inch the golden boy, even if the gold had started to tarnish around the edges. His recent business ventures hadn't gone as planned, but tonight wasn't about that. Tonight was about family, tradition, and maintaining appearances. "You look lost in thought." I turned to find Mark's younger cousin David smiling at me. He was one of the few people in this family who'd ever bothered to learn my name before assuming things about me. "Just taking it all in," I said, returning his smile. "It's beautiful." "It's chaos dressed up in ribbon," he said, lowering his voice. "But yes, Mother outdoes herself every year, though I notice you're hiding in here rather than mingling with the sharks." "Observing," I corrected. "There's a difference." He laughed and moved past me toward the bar, leaving me alone again with my thoughts. 5 years I'd been married to Mark. 5 years of Christmas gatherings in this mansion, and I still felt like an outsider. Not because I wanted to fit in. I'd long ago accepted that some circles were designed to keep people like me on the periphery, but because they needed someone to look down on, and I'd been cast in that role from the beginning. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had made her feelings clear from our first meeting. Too young, too poor, too ambitious. All things that translated to gold digger in her eyes. Never mind that I'd built my own career, that I'd never asked Mark for anything, that I'd signed the prenuptial agreement without protest. In Patricia's world, I existed as a threat to be managed, not a daughter to be welcomed. And Catherine, my sister-in-law, had followed her mother's lead with enthusiasm. She'd grown up as the princess of this castle. Daddy's little girl with unlimited credit cards and zero accountability. At 33, she still lived in the guest house, still threw tantrums when things didn't go her way, still expected everyone to cater to her whims. She'd never worked a day in her life and wore her uselessness like a badge of honor. Tonight she was holding court in the living room, surrounded by cousins and aunts who oohed and awed over her new jewelry. Emeralds, she'd announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, a gift from herself because she deserved something special. The stones caught the light as she gestured dramatically, and I found myself wondering what it would be like to live so free from self-awareness. "There you are!" Mark appeared at my elbow, his cheeks flushed from the heat and the whiskey. "Mother's about to do the toast. Come on." He took my hand and pulled me toward the living room before I could protest. The crowd had gathered around Patricia, who stood beside the fireplace with a crystal glass raised high. She wore red. She always wore red at Christmas. A designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Family," she began, and the room fell silent. Another year, another blessing to be gathered together in this house. As we celebrate the birth of our Lord and the joy of this season, let us remember what truly matters: our bonds of blood, our shared history, our legacy. Her eyes found me in the crowd, held for just a moment too long, then moved on. The message was clear. I wasn't part of that legacy, not really. "To family," she concluded, raising her glass higher. "To family," the room echoed, and we all drank. I was setting my empty glass on a side table when the screaming started. It came from upstairs, a shriek so piercing that conversation died instantly. We all froze, heads turning toward the staircase as Catherine's voice rang out again. "Someone help! Oh my God, someone help!" Mark was moving before anyone else, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I followed, along with half the party, our footsteps thundering on the hardwood. We found Catherine in her old bedroom, the one Patricia had kept exactly as she'd left it when she moved to the guest house. A shrine to her privileged adolescence, all pink and white and gold. She was on her knees beside the bed, her face blotchy and streaked with tears, pulling at something under the frame. The emerald necklace lay abandoned on the nightstand. "It's gone," she sobbed. "All of it." Gone! What's gone? Patricia pushed through the crowd, her voice sharp with alarm. Catherine, what are you talking about? The money! Catherine's hands were shaking as she gestured at the floor. I had it hidden here, in the box under the bed. $2 million. It's gone. Someone took it. The room erupted. Questions flew, voices overlapped, and Catherine kept sobbing the same words over and over. $2 million, gone, stolen, impossible. Patricia dropped to her knees beside her daughter, pulling out a metal box that had clearly been pried open, its lock broken and bent. I stood in the doorway, watching the chaos unfold, my mind already working through the implications. $2 million in cash, hidden under a bed like some kind of fairy tale treasure. The absurdity of it would have been funny if the situation weren't so clearly about to become my problem. And I was right. Patricia's head snapped up, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I saw the calculation happen, saw the moment she decided I was guilty before a single shred of evidence had been examined. You, she said, her voice cold and hard. Where were you 10 minutes ago? Downstairs, I said calmly. In the kitchen doorway, talking to David. Search her, Catherine demanded, struggling to her feet. Search her purse. I know it was her. She's been asking about money, talking to Mark about his debts. I have never asked Mark for money, I said, my voice level despite the anger building in my chest. And I certainly wouldn't steal from... Search her, Catherine screamed. And suddenly they were all moving toward me. Mark's uncle grabbed my purse from where I'd left it on a hallway table. His wife snatched at my coat. Hands reached for me, voices demanded I empty my pockets, and through it all, Patricia stood watching with that expression of grim satisfaction, as if her worst suspicions were finally being confirmed. I could have fought them, could have screamed, protested, demanded they stop. But I'd learned something in my 5 years with this family. Panic was their weapon, and I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me wield it. So I stood still and silent as they tore through my belongings, as they turned out my pockets and checked the lining of my coat. I watched Mark's face, seeing his struggle between loyalty to his family and faith in his wife, and I knew which side would win. It always did. They found the cash in my coat pocket, a single $100 bill folded neatly and tucked into the inside pocket I never used. The room went silent. Catherine's eyes widened, her mouth falling open in an expression of vindicated horror. Patricia's face transformed from suspicion to absolute certainty, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I knew it, Patricia whispered. I always knew what you were. The slap came without warning. Her palm connected with my cheek hard enough to snap my head to the side, hard enough to leave my skin burning and my ears ringing. Through the shock, I heard gasps, heard Catherine say, "Mother," in a tone that was more excitement than reproach. I touched my cheek, felt the heat there, and looked at Patricia. Really looked at her, at the rage and disgust in her eyes, at the way she was already reaching for her phone. "I'm calling the police," she said. "Right now. We're pressing charges. You're going to jail." And that was when I smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small curve of my lips, but it was enough to make her hesitate. Around us, the family members who'd been shouting started to quiet, sensing that something had shifted. "Please do," I said softly. "Call them right now. I'd welcome it." Patricia's finger hovered over her phone screen. "You think I won't? You think I'm bluffing?" "I think you should call them immediately," I said, my voice steady and clear. "In fact, I insist on it. Call the police. Tell them everything. I'll wait right here." The confusion on her face was almost worth the handprint on my cheek. She'd expected tears, protests, maybe a confession. She'd expected me to crumble under the weight of their collective judgment. What she hadn't expected was for me to call her bluff. Because that's what this was. A bluff. A setup. A carefully orchestrated performance designed to finally drive me out of this family. And I'd just called for an audience. "Call them," I repeated, looking around at the faces staring at me. "I want the police here. I want an official investigation. I want cameras, statements, evidence. Please, Patricia, make that call." She did. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed, and I watched her tell the dispatcher about the theft, about the evidence found on my person, about the need for immediate police response. When she hung up, she looked at me with something like uncertainty, and I knew I'd won the first round. "They'll be here in 15 minutes," she said. "Good," I replied. "I'll wait in the living room, with all of you as witnesses." I walked out of the bedroom with my head high, my coat still in my hands, and made my way downstairs. Behind me, I heard the confused murmur of voices, heard Catherine asking her mother what was wrong with me, heard Mark's footsteps as he followed me down. "What are you doing?" he hissed when we reached the first floor. "Why aren't you explaining? Defending yourself?" I turned to face him, this man I'd married, this man who'd stood silent while his mother struck me. "Because I don't need to," I said. "The truth will do that for me." His eyes searched mine, looking for something: fear, guilt, panic. He wouldn't find any of those things. I'd spent too many years learning to keep my face neutral, my emotions locked away where this family couldn't use them against me. "Did you take it?" he asked, his voice so quiet only I could hear. And there it was, the question that mattered, the one that told me everything I needed to know about where we stood. "What do you think?" I asked. He looked away. I sat on the white sofa in the living room, the one no one usually dared to use because Patricia worried about stains. Around me, the family gathered in clusters, whispering behind hands, shooting glances in my direction. Some looked angry, some confused, a few almost sympathetic. David caught my eye and raised his eyebrows in a silent question. I shook my head slightly. "Not now." Patricia and Catherine came down together, Catherine still sniffling, Patricia stone-faced and rigid. They took positions on the opposite side of the room, as far from me as they could get while still maintaining visual contact, like I was a wild animal that might bolt if they looked away. The silence was broken by the doorbell. Two officers stood on the front step, their uniforms and badges looking strangely out of place against the Christmas decorations. Patricia ushered them in, already talking, her voice high and rushed as she explained about the money, the theft, the evidence. "And you found cash on this woman?" The older officer, his nameplate read Martinez, looked at me with professional neutrality. "In her coat pocket," Patricia confirmed. $100 bill, proof that she was stealing from my daughter. Officer Martinez turned to me. "Ma'am, is that true? Did they find money in your possession?" "They found a $100 bill in my coat pocket, yes," I said calmly. "But I didn't put it there." "She's lying," Catherine burst out. "She took my money and tried to hide it." "Miss, please," Martinez held up a hand. "Let's take this step by step. Where is this cash now?" Patricia produced the bill, sealed in a plastic bag like she'd seen on TV crime shows. Martinez examined it, then looked at his partner, a younger woman named Chen. "Ma'am," Chen addressed me, "do you consent to us examining your coat and belongings?" "Absolutely," I said. "Please, be thorough." They were. They checked every pocket, every seam, turned the entire coat inside out. They went through my purse with careful attention, documenting everything they found: wallet, phone, keys, lip balm, a pack of tissues. Nothing else. No other cash, no evidence of any theft. "When did you last wear this coat?" Martinez asked. "I've been wearing it all evening," I said. "Since I arrived at 6 o'clock. Before that, it was hanging in our bedroom closet at home." "And this pocket," he indicated the inside pocket where the bill had been found. "Do you use it regularly?" "Never," I said. "I didn't even know it was there until they pulled the money out of it." Catherine made a scoffing sound, but Martinez ignored her, turning instead to Patricia. "You said $2 million was stolen? In what denominations?" Patricia looked at Catherine. "Catherine?" "Hundreds," Catherine said. "All hundreds. I counted them myself just yesterday, 200 bundles of $10,000 each." Martinez wrote this down. "That's 20,000 bills. Where were they being kept?" "In a security box under my bed." "Can we see the box?" They all trooped back upstairs. Officers and family members and me. A strange parade through the decorated halls. The metal box sat on Catherine's bed now, its broken lock stark against the pink bedspread. Chen knelt beside it, examining the damage. "This was forced open recently. You can see the fresh scratches on the metal." "Exactly," Patricia said triumphantly. "She broke it open and took the money." "Actually," Chen looked up, her expression neutral, These marks suggest the box was opened from the outside with a tool, probably a crowbar or similar implement. Do you own any tools like that, ma'am? She directed this question at me. No, I said. I don't. We'll need to verify that, Martinez said. But first, I'd like to check something. He turned to Catherine. Miss, can you walk us through exactly what happened? When did you discover the money was gone? Catherine's eyes darted to her mother, then back to the officer. I I came up to get my necklace, the emerald one, for pictures, and I noticed the box was out from under the bed and the lock was broken, and when I opened it, everything was gone. What time was this? Maybe 20 minutes ago? I came straight down and told everyone. And before that? When did you last check on the money? Yesterday. I counted it yesterday morning. Martinez exchanged a glance with Chen. That's a lot of cash to keep in a box under your bed. Was it deposited from a bank? Proceeds from a sale? Catherine's face flushed. That's private. Not anymore, Martinez said gently. This is a theft investigation. We need to know the source of these funds. It was my money, Catherine insisted, from my trust fund. I took it out in cash because I wanted to make a large purchase and I didn't want it showing up on any statements. The officers didn't comment on this, but I saw the understanding in their eyes. Cash transaction, no paper trail. Whatever Catherine had been planning to buy, she'd wanted to keep it secret. All right, Martinez said. Now, who had access to this room today? Everyone, Patricia admitted reluctantly. It's Christmas. People have been going in and out all day, using the bathroom, getting coats from the bedroom. So potentially dozens of people, Chen said. And the accused? She nodded at me. Was she up here at any point? I don't know, Patricia said, and I could hear the frustration in her voice. She was starting to realize how flimsy her case was. I wasn't, I said. I can provide you with a timeline of my movements all evening. I arrived at 6 with my husband, stayed in the main living areas until the toast, went upstairs when Catherine started screaming, and was searched immediately. I was never alone, and I was never in this room before the money was discovered missing. She's lying, Catherine said again, but there was less conviction in her voice now. Martinez turned to the crowd of family members hovering in the hallway. Did anyone see this woman go into this room before the theft was discovered? Silence. People looked at each other, shook their heads. Even Patricia had to admit she hadn't seen me upstairs. What about cameras? Chen asked. Do you have security cameras in the house? Just the exterior ones, Patricia said. We never felt the need for cameras inside. Pity, Chen said. That would have made this much simpler. She stood, brushing off her knees. Let's go back downstairs. In the living room, Martinez asked me to sit while they interviewed other guests. One by one, people told their stories, where they'd been, what they'd seen, when they'd noticed Catherine's distress. David confirmed he'd been talking to me in the kitchen. A cousin named Jennifer said she'd seen me by the windows earlier. No one could place me anywhere near Catherine's room. Then Chen asked to interview Catherine privately. They went into Patricia's study, and we all waited in tense silence. Mark stood by the fireplace, not looking at me. Patricia sat ramrod straight on her chair, her lips pressed into a thin line. When Catherine emerged 20 minutes later, her face was blotchy and new tears streaked her cheeks. Chen's expression was carefully neutral, but something had shifted. Miss Catherine, Martinez said, his tone formal now, can you explain why the security footage from the exterior cameras shows you carrying a large duffel bag out to the guest house at approximately 7:45 this evening? The room went silent. Catherine's mouth opened and closed. I was just... The timestamp is very clear, Chen added. Just 10 minutes before you raised the alarm about the theft, you carried something heavy out of the main house and into the guest house, then returned empty-handed. That doesn't mean anything, Patricia stood, her voice shaking. She could have been taking out trash, or... The bag appeared quite full, Martinez said. Heavy enough that she had to use both hands. We'd like permission to search the guest house. No, Catherine said quickly. No, you can't. I don't consent. We can get a warrant, Chen said quietly. But it would be faster if you cooperated. Catherine looked at her mother, and I saw something pass between them. some shared understanding, some moment of recognition that the plan had failed. Patricia's face seemed to age 10 years in that instant. "Catherine," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "what did you do?" And then my sister-in-law broke, not gracefully, not quietly, but with the messy desperation of someone who'd never had to face consequences before. "It was supposed to be simple," she sobbed. Just get her out of this family. Make everyone see what she really is. She doesn't belong here. She never has. And Mark would be better off without her. You said so yourself, Mother. You always said." "Catherine, stop talking," Patricia ordered, but it was too late. "The money is in the guest house," Catherine continued through her tears. "In my closet, in the duffel bag. I was going to put it back later, after she was arrested, after she was gone. And the $100 in her coat? I put it there this afternoon when she hung it up. I thought it would be enough. I thought everyone would believe." "That's enough," Martinez said firmly. He looked at his partner, and Chen nodded, already reaching for her radio to call for backup. I sat very still, watching it all unfold, watching Catherine's confession spill out in broken gasps, watching Patricia's face crumble as she realized what her daughter had done, what she herself had been complicit in by jumping so quickly to judgment, watching the family members shift and whisper, their expressions ranging from shock to vindication to shame. Mark finally looked at me. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw everything in his face: the guilt, the regret, the dawning understanding of what his silence had cost. "Ma'am," Martinez addressed me, "I apologize for what you've been through this evening. You're free to go, of course. We'll need a statement from you, but that can wait until you're ready." "I'll give it now," I said calmly, "while everything is fresh." They took me to the study, away from the chaos. I told them everything: the years of hostility, Patricia's constant suspicion, Catherine's jealousy. I showed them the mark on my cheek where I'd been struck. I provided timeline after timeline, detail after detail, and I never once raised my voice or showed anything but composed certainty. When we emerged, Catherine was in handcuffs. Chen was explaining something about false accusation, filing a false police report, and possible fraud charges. Patricia stood frozen, watching her daughter being read her rights, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked small. Mark approached me as the officers led Catherine toward the door. "I'm sorry," he said. "God, I'm so sorry. I should have defended you. I should have known." "Yes," I interrupted, my voice quiet but clear. "You should have." His face crumpled. "Can we talk? Please? Can we go somewhere and talk about this?" I looked at him. This man I'd married, this man who'd stood silent while his mother struck me, who'd questioned whether I was a thief, who'd chosen his family's assumptions over his wife's integrity. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast and echoing emptiness where my feelings for him used to be. "Not tonight," I said. "Tonight I'm going to get my coat and my purse, and I'm going to leave. We can talk tomorrow, or the next day, or never. I haven't decided yet." "Please don't," he started, but I was already walking away. I found my coat, the one they'd searched so thoroughly, and my purse with its innocent contents. David intercepted me at the door. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said, and meant it. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I never believed it, not for a second." "Thank you," I said. "That does mean something." I walked out into the snow, into the Christmas night that had turned so strange and ugly and somehow liberating. Behind me, I could hear raised voices, crying, the sound of a family fracturing under the weight of its own dysfunction. My car was cold, the seat icy beneath me, but I didn't mind. I sat for a moment, looking at the lit windows of the mansion, thinking about the last 5 years. The snide comments and backhanded compliments, the subtle exclusions and overt hostilities, the constant feeling of being an intruder in my own marriage. I thought I could endure it, thought that if I was patient enough, kind enough, perfect enough, they'd eventually accept me. What a foolish dream that had been. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Please come back. We need you." I deleted it without responding. Another text, this time from Patricia. "I apologize for striking you. That was wrong." I almost laughed. After 5 years of treating me like a criminal, She apologized for the slap, not for the accusations, not for the search, not for believing the worst of me without a shred of real evidence, just for the physical assault because that was the only part that could get her in legal trouble. I started the car and pulled out of the driveway, watching the mansion shrink in my rearview mirror. The snow had stopped falling and the clouds were breaking up, revealing stars that glittered cold and distant in the December sky. My phone buzzed again and again and again. I let it buzz, let them all sit in the wreckage of their Christmas, in the consequences of their assumptions and their malice. Let them wonder if I'd come back, if I'd forgive them, if their family would survive this. I drove through empty streets toward the apartment Mark and I kept in the city. The one I'd insisted on keeping even after we'd moved to the suburban house his mother had helped us buy. I told him it was practical, a place to stay when we worked late. But really, it had been my escape route all along. Some part of me had always known I might need it. The apartment was dark and quiet when I arrived. I flipped on lights, turned up the heat, poured myself a glass of wine, actually drank it this time. I stood at the window, looking out at the city lights, and took stock of where I was. My marriage was probably over. I'd lost the in-laws I'd never really had. Christmas was ruined in a spectacular, possibly criminal way. And tomorrow, the calls would start. From Mark, from lawyers, from family members wanting to explain or apologize or convince me to come back and pretend this had never happened. But tonight, I was alone. And I was safe. And I was free of the weight of their judgment, their suspicion, their endless need to make me smaller so they could feel bigger. I'd walked into that mansion 5 years ago as Mark's new wife, young and hopeful and naive enough to think I could earn their respect. I'd walked out tonight as someone different, harder, wiser, and finally done trying to fit myself into spaces designed to exclude me. The truth had found its light, just like I'd told them it would. Catherine's desperate frame job had collapsed under the most basic scrutiny. Patricia's certainty had crumbled in the face of evidence. And I'd stood there through all of it, calm and quiet and absolutely certain of my innocence, refusing to give them the panic they'd wanted to see. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mark. I love you. I'm sorry. Please. I turned off my phone. Outside, the city sparkled with Christmas lights, and somewhere in the distance, church bells rang for midnight mass. Another Christmas Eve was ending, and with it, the last of my illusions about the family I'd married into. Tomorrow would bring complications, legal issues to resolve, a marriage to dissect, a future to reimagine. But tonight, I was simply a woman in her own apartment, drinking her own wine, making her own choices. Tonight, I was free. And that, I thought as I raised my glass to my reflection in the window, was the best Christmas gift I could have given myself. The truth had won. I had won. And sometimes, that was enough.